Namaskar. This is David Hawthorne at astroview.com. Today is the 24th of April, 2022. I just wanted to share a little update on the chart for Ukraine with respect to some possible good news. First off, just as a quick reminder, for the Capricorn rising sign, and using the systems approach to Vedic astrology, we say there are 5 favorable planets that will never cause harm. So this Shani Chandra conjunction is fine. Saturn rules the house of wealth, status, and continuation of family life. And it's in its own sign of Capricorn. This is very good for leading the masses. It brings wealth and status through one's own self-efforts. And Moon rules the 7th house, so it brings partnerships, relationships, joint ventures, and connection with foreign lands. These are favorable. In India, they would say, oh, this is the dreaded Sadi Sati. That's the 2.5 years when Saturn transits before the moon, 2.5 years on the moon, 2.5 years after the moon. This is not applicable for Capricorn rising signs, using systems approach to Vedic astrology. Which, by the way, is now being used by more than 800 Vedic astrologers worldwide. Venus will never cause harm. It rules the 10th house of career. Mercury will never cause harm. It rules the 9th house of Guru, Dharma, good fortune. Mars will never cause harm. It rules the 4th house of property and happiness and home life. Now, Capricorn rising sign persons and countries and companies should never strengthen Rahu or Ketu. Nobody should strengthen Rahu or Ketu. We have to propitiate them or pacify them, honor them. We do not strengthen the 8th house ruler, Sun, or the 12th house ruler, Guru, Jupiter. For Capricorn, Sun and Jupiter bring trouble because this 8th house and the 12th house are Dustan Bhavas, inauspicious houses. Now, Sun is in his own sign of Leo, which helps. Planets cannot harm their own houses. But Sun does cause trouble for Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter, because they're all within 5 degrees of Sun, plus they're combust. So they all become vulnerable. Venus ruling the field of action, career, country's livelihood, profession, working force, undermines the strength of Mercury ruling good fortune, divine grace, undermines the strength of Jupiter ruling losses and expenses, even end of life, and foreign lands. Now, we know that Rahu, Ketu can cause a lot of trouble when they get close to the rising sign degree. This is not an arbitrary number. 0 to 30 is possible in every house. This number changes every 4 minutes of the day. This is called most effective point of every house. Any planet within a 5-degree orb of this number will have an impact in the house it occupies and in the houses it aspects. So this number actually starts at 27 degrees in the house before, and goes up to 7 degrees in this house. But this holds true for all 12 houses. So we see that Jupiter is on the most affecting point down here. So it brings 12th house problems to the 8th house: obstructions, delays, disappointment, setbacks, transformations, vulnerability, and death-like experiences. Now, Mercury and Venus are also close to the most affecting point, so their 7th aspects into the second house is favorable. Venus influence in the second house connects the 10th house with the second house, so that's good for wealth and status through the nation's economy, democracy. Mercury's 7th aspect brings some good fortune and divine grace into the country's wealth, status, and family life. I'm glad that Sun is not at 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 6 degrees, because that would be a serious impact. Some influence, but not as much as Jupiter. So Jupiter's 5th, 7th, and 9th aspects are adverse. So this 5th aspect causes trouble in the 12th house of foreign lands, losses, expenses, depression, isolation, hospitalization, end of life. I actually need to back that up again for a moment. I apologize. Let's reverse that. Because Jupiter rules this house, so it cannot harm this house. So those students out there that already know that principle, I'm sure they were saying, oh, that's wrong, David. But you're right. It was wrong. So Jupiter cannot afflict his own house. So let's pass that one. Not a problem. But Jupiter's 7th aspect does afflict the second house. So that brings losses and expenses into the house of wealth, status, and continuation of family life, causing discontinuation of family life. And Jupiter's 9th aspect causes losses and expenses relative to property, happiness, and domestic peace, the country's domestic peace. So this is really the guy that's causing a lot of trouble in this chart. We do not strengthen the 6th, 8th, or 12th house rulers. Those are Dustan Babas, inauspicious houses. If they contain a moolatrikona sign, then the rulers become functional malefic planets for that chart. So the 6th house does not contain a moolatrikona sign. But the 8th house and the 12th house do contain a moolatrikona sign. Whenever you're reading charts, always look to see where the moolatrikona signs are. That's where people are working things out with this lifetime. So those are moolatrikona signs are 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. For those that are not already aware of this principle, Sage Parashara in the Brihat Parashara Horoscope says Grahas rule 2 bhavas, planets rule 2 houses. Moolatrikona sign takes precedence. So most astrologers reading that in Sanskrit maybe didn't quite grasp the meaning of that, but Professor V.K. Chowdhury did. So, for example, Jupiter rules Pisces and Sagittarius, but Sagittarius is the moolatrikona sign. So that takes precedence. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, but Mars is the moolatrikona sign. So Aries for Mars, Cancer for Moon, Leo for Sun, Virgo for Mercury, Libra for Venus, Sagittarius for Jupiter, and Aquarius for Saturn. Always check those out. So most Capricorn persons are working things out with happiness, property, home life, relationships, research, inheritance, windfalls, ancient knowledge, gurus, religion, professional life, and losses and expenses, or foreign lands or ashrams, and wealth, status, speech, and continuation of family life. That's where Capricorns work things out. It's a great technique to know how important it is to understand where the moolatrikona signs fall. So number 5 is the moolatrikona sign for Sun. So Sun becomes the most malefic planet for Capricorns. If there's no moolatrikona sign in the 8th house, then you go to the 12th house for the most malefic planet. In this case, Sun remains most malefic planet, but Jupiter becomes a functional malefic planet. So I really wanted to point that out because that's how I can get to the good news here. You have to understand the principles first. Mars, by the way, is close to the most effective point. So it blesses the 9th house. It connects the Dharma with property and military. Sports, engineering, mathematics, construction, national security. Mars throws an aspect 4, 7, and 8 houses away. Those are favorable for this chart. Now Mars is less than 5 degrees. That's called infant state, so it's weak. And it's ruled by Mercury, which drags Mars into the 8th house. Planets are codependent on the strength of their dispositor, their landlord, if they are in a moolatrikona sign. But there's still some positive influence. So Mars helps with the 12th house. It helps with the 3rd house of self-initiatives. So they're very courageous. They're self-initiatives, self-efforts. And the 8th aspect helps the 4th house of domestic peace and happiness through military. So now let me share with you why I think there's going to be some relief coming up here. So this is a chart for the country. This inner circle is the same chart, just the circular format. The outer circle has the transit charts. Now let's look back here on April 1st. In a previous video, I went into why the war happened and those kind of transits, if you want to visit that other video. I wanted to get more of the current situation. So around April 1st, Jupiter was at 27 degrees. I said this 5-degree orb starts at 27 and it goes up to 7. So that's a danger point. It's a flash point. That's April 1st. And we see that by April 13th, Jupiter was at 0 degrees in Pisces. But that's within 2.5 degrees of the most effective point. So now we have a real serious problem here. So Jupiter is afflicting the 3rd house. And sitting here, he aspects 5, 7, and 9 houses away. So relationships, good fortune, income, friendships, these are all under stress because of Jupiter. So what I wanted to see is when Jupiter gets to 7 degrees and pulls away from the most effective point, and there should be some relief. Jupiter's slow moving, but we're going to move him along here. 1 degree on April 20th. 3 degrees on April 27th. So 3 days from now should be a little bit of an improvement. 4 degrees on May 4th. That's 4 degrees. This is 2 degrees. We don't like that number. We want to get up to 7. 5 degrees May 11th. 7 degrees May 18th. Now, in my opinion, this will reduce the adverse effects of Jupiter, ruin the 12th house of losses. And then, in my opinion, Jupiter will be benign in this house. for the next 10 months. That's good. Now, Rahu and Ketu, let's go ahead and go backwards a little bit here. See if anybody's paying attention here. 2 degrees, that is the most effective point for Capricorn, for Ukraine. When I say 7 degrees, so back in December, some stress started coming. Rahu and Ketu were at 7 degrees in even signs, Taurus and Scorpio. The even signs are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Rahu and Ketu spend 18 months in even signs and then 18 months in odd signs. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. Because they throw an aspect, 5, 7, and 9 houses from where they sit, they can reach out any time and touch any planets in the odd signs, in the birth chart, or in the transit chart. And the same holds for even signs. So here they were in even signs back in December. So Ketu was sitting here, throwing an aspect 5, 7, and 9 houses away. Rahu sitting here, aspecting 5, 7, and 9 houses away. So 6 of the 12 houses came under this dark cloud. Closer. January 23rd, 5 degrees. Very close to the most effective point. So this is when the dark cloud got very dark. In January. Into January, 4 degrees. Early February, 3 degrees. I think that's about when things were really bad. They're afflicting 6 of the 12 houses. Three degrees, February 13th. 2 degrees, 100% affliction, February 20th. It was horrible. One degree, February 27th. 0 degrees, March 6th. 0 degrees, March 13th. 29 degrees, March 29th. It's still within a 5-degree orb. We need to get them to 27. But the problem is when they got to 28 degrees, they went stationary for 3 months. And most astrologers know that Rahu and Ketu travel retrograde, backwards. They enter a house at 30 degrees, takes 18 months to go through that sign. They exit at 0 degrees. But only systems approach astrologers know that Rahu and Ketu will go stationary at a particular degree for up to 3 months at a time. And if that's your rising sign degree or close to it, that's trouble. Or if they're on top of one of your planets by conjunction or aspect. The first month you say something is wrong. The second month you say something is seriously wrong. The third month you think you're not going to make it. Anybody can take a 3-day fever, but you can't take a 3-month fever. So I'm glad they didn't stop at 2 degrees or 1 degree or 0 degrees. There was a little separation, but which is maybe why Ukraine was able to survive this so far. But as they get to 28 and then they just stop. Watch how many weeks they're going to be here. About 11 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks. So middle of June, they get to 27 degrees, and that'll be the worst of it, in my opinion. Again, I'm happy that Rocky didn't stop at 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Then they would have been annihilated, in my opinion. So I think the role now that's caused the trouble was Jupiter going over the most effective point. This is middle of April, 0 degrees. Two degrees April 22nd. So this last week or so of April is not good. Jupiter on the most effective point. So there's our number right there. So it's actually May 17th. 7 degrees. That's when we should start to see some positive trend. Let's hope. Let's really, really hope and pray. Okay, I hope this little video is helpful. Be the light for world peace. Namah Shivaya.